everyone, it's your favourite Atomic Blonde here with my Picard Season 3, Episode 8 review. So obviously last week was a episode. I think we all need a few of those to move the story forward, but definitely not my favourite episode. So a little bit apprehensive going into this one. Have to say, I like this episode. You can definitely feel it. The sort of, obviously the story moves forward again. You can feel the tension cranking up. First half was sort of very similar dynamic feel as episode 7 or 7. sort of talking, character, like where are we going to, and then the second half just cranks it in, and boy, are we leading up to a 9 and 10. I am so excited after this episode. And Terry, that cliffhanger at the end, I hate you, FYI. But we'll come to that. So going from the top. So obviously at the end of the last episode, Vadic had gotten to the bridge and taken over the Titan. It starts with a great shot of her sort of lighting her cigarette, and it actually sort of seen in the reflection of the glass dome in the ceiling of the bridge, and sort of pans down. And, she's gloating and taking over the ship still. And her first act, as you would, is to basically cut them off and isolate them. So she removes, obviously, all visuals so they can't see. And then we see sort of Geordie is unplugging Data/Law before things get any worse. And we see some of the crew members running down the corridor, trying to get hold of the bridge. They're like, bridge, what's going on? And the next thing she does, obviously, is remove comms. So the crew that's spread around the ship is now cut off, and they're being rounded up by the Shrike. And then we just basically, we don't see it, but we hear the changelings just shooting the crew and killing the crew. And Vadic's listening to this, and hearing the crew screams and hearing them die is just, almost like she's like doing this, like it's a symphony, like she's listening to music, to people's screams, which is one cold biatch. So, which obviously, really tells us a lot about her character and how much she hates solids. They really are meaningless to her. We see that Jack and Sydney joined Picard and Beverly Crusher, and Picard and Beverly are desperately trying to find a way back into the ship's systems to try and get into any system that they can try and get some control back. We then cut to Riker on the Shrike ship. Him and Deanna are imprisoned, and they start talking, and it's a lovely scene between them, actually. And she sort of says to him, he says like how much he's missed her, and she sort of says he's changed. She can feel that he's changed, and he explains what happened, that when they're in the nebula and he thought they were going to die, he was kind of at his sort of bleakest or darkest, and it hadn't felt like, he hadn't felt that sense of desperation since Thaddeus died. But then coming out the nebula, he's seeing this creature born, gave him some hope back that there are still good things out there in the world. And when he came out, that all he wanted to do was see her face, and she's kind of like, "Oh God, yeah, Riker the Charmer's back," and he's like, "Well, if we're gonna die, I give one last taste of Riker charm," and she laughs, and it's very, very sort of sweet. Then he like Deanna says, have we done the right thing? And what we find out is that they gave Vadik obviously the override codes to Titan, and it was like, well, if I know Jean-Luc, he's already got a plan and he'll have him on the ropes by now, which we know is not the case. They are in dire straits on the Titan. And when we cut back, Vadik makes an announcement that she wants, obviously, Jack to come to the bridge. As she said at the end of the last episode, come and find out who you really are. And she's basically getting fed up of waiting. And if he doesn't come to the bridge, he's got like 10 minutes to come to the bridge. And if he doesn't come to the bridge, she's going to start killing the bridge crew. We'll kill one every 10 minutes that he doesn't come. There's also then a good interaction between Shaw and Seven, because Shaw's like pissed at her that understandably that he's like, you should have blown up the turbo lift with like me and her and the changelings in it. And Seven's like, no, I've already lost too many people. I'm sort of not losing anymore. And Shaw, and it's a great line from Shaw, because at this point, we're gradually learning about him, but it says a lot about his character. That he's like, well, we're Starfleet officers, and you can't always make the warm and fuzzy decisions. Sometimes we've got to make decisions that aren't nice, and the safety of the ship and the crew is paramount, and she's like, well, if I had to make that decision again, I'd make the same one. And he's just like, protecting the crew, basically she made the wrong decision, which he was ready to die. And I think that says a lot about him. And actually he's not that he's a coward, but he's a very cautious captain. He's not as gung-ho as Kirk and some of the others, but that really speaks volumes about how much he cares about his crew and his ship, and doing the right thing by them. So I thought it was really, really good bit of just a small good bit of dialogue. So obviously Jack hears this announcement and is like, right, I've got to hand myself in. Picard and Beverly are like, absolutely not. Like, once she's got you, we're all disposable. She's going to kill everybody anyway, and she'll blow up the ship. So, we have to come up with something else. We've got to, think about the bigger picture. Then Jack starts to sort of walk backwards, and his eyes do that glowy red thing. And then he's able to sort of project his consciousness into another member of the crew. And he's looking down the corridor, and he obviously sees that most of them have been killed. And his sort of consciousness snaps back, and he's like, oh, oh my God, he's like seeing dead bodies everywhere. And Picard and Beverly are like, what's wrong, Jack? Are you okay? What's happening? Because she's worried about his condition. And he kind of explains how his powers have developed, and how he can sort of see through other people's eyes or control other people. And Sydney backs him up on this. She goes, he's not hallucinating. He's not losing it. This really happened. It happened. He did it with me. And this gives him an idea that maybe Jack can take control of someone on the bridge. And he does. He takes control of Lieutenant Mura. Mura. And he starts typing in Picard's override code. Unfortunately, Vadik sees this, and she's like, whoa, what are you doing? How do you know Picard's override code? Because obviously only Picard should know what it is. And obviously Mira's like, I don't know. And then she realizes, she goes, like, Jack, is that you in there? So she obviously knows more about Jack and Jack's powers than Jack does. And and she sort of says to him like, oh, I see that, like, you know, you're living up to your potential, that you're getting a grasp of your powers, and obviously this kind of freaks him out. She then goes on to say, well, your 10 minutes has expired. So it was like time to kill one of the crew. This scene was done so well. She starts walking up to members of the crew. She talks to the ensign, asks who she is, and she gives her name and her rank and what she does. Then she goes to Lieutenant Mura, asks him the same thing, again, sort of name, rank, number, and she asks him, is there someone that loves you? She wants to know more. You know, she really wants to hurt. You know, she hates Solid, she hates humans, and she really wants to, like, you know, hurt Jack as much as possible. And the lieutenant says, well, my son. And she's like, well, you know, we'll tell Picard to get up to the bridge, and you know, you can live. And he's like, I can't do that. I'm Starfleet, which is just an amazing line. Loved it. It's like behaving like people in Starfleet. You know, every time they step board on a ship or they go on a mission, they might die. You mean Starfleet's has not been at war for a while, but that doesn't, as we know from every Star Trek episode, especially if you're wearing a red shirt, it's dangerous out there. You know, things can happen. So, you know, he's almost decided to that, you know, that he, at any point, something could happen to him, and, you know, his son might lose him. So, and obviously this just pees her off. And she walks behind him and then puts a gun to the ensign's head. And then just literally out of nowhere, she puts the gun on Tavine and kills her. That was the Vulcan or half Vulcan science officer. So, and I think why this works so well is that the great job that Terry's done is giving us this new crew, giving us these, you know, we've seen enough of them. There's been enough interaction that we care about this crew, and to have like a one of the main bridge crew killed is like, whoa. I was like, oh, so it's normally someone like red shirt, yellow shirt that we don't really know, we're not really sure what their name is, but to take out like one of the new crew was just, oh, bold choice, but boy, did it work. Then she forces Seven to tell them who she's killed. And then obviously, you know, this is just going to keep happening. We go back to the Shrike, and Deanna and Reich are still obviously talking. And it kind of basically touches on or goes into like why Riker was so keen to leave as soon as he got the call from Picard, and you know, why they've sort of been separated. And it sort of explain, and Riker's like, you know, he needed his grief. It was his last connection to his son. And Deanna was like, but I was losing you to that grief, and I kind of had to do something. And obviously she's feeling the grief of everybody because she's Betazoid or Betazoid. And he's angry at her for trying to take that grief away. But from her point of view, she's like, I didn't want to take it away. I wanted to help you carry it. I wanted to help you through it. You know, I didn't want to lose you. But then she says, like, you know, as a counselor, I forgot the golden rule, and it's like you can't skip to the end. You know, people have got a process. And they hug, and then they start talking about a little bit more lighthearted. This cabin in the woods that they were living in season 1, which is just so not Riker and Troy. And this is basically what they say. They say, oh, you know, we went to that cabin for Thaddeus. And Deanna's just like, I hate living in the country. I hate the birds. I hate it. And he's like, I'm the same. I can't stand it either. And but let's all kind of move back to the city. And they're sort of hugging and laughing. And then when the changelings comes, and he opens the barrier to their holding cell, And he comes to come in, and Riker's like get away from Deanna. You're not. And he's like real protective, like husband, like shoving him away, like don't you. And then we just see like a blade go through the changeling and pull out, and collapses, and there stands Worf. And then we get a brilliant interaction. Initially, like Deanna's like Worf, and then the three of them are sort of like they put their hug Worf, and Worf's a bit like personal space, hello. And they step back, and then Worf goes into this sort of speech that he's obviously planned for ages. Where he sees Deanna, about like how she helped him on his journey, and like ripples of the water and this, that, and the other thing. And Riker's like, whoa, it's tad inappropriate, you know, bit TMI. Do you mind, like, husband standing here? And Wolf just continues, and then Riker's you know, is this like a rescue, or are you continuing to torture me kind of thing? And Wolf's like, okay, fine, I get the hint. And then Worf obviously says, right, we need to get out of here, but there's something I need to show you before we go. Back on the Titan. Oh no, so they then he takes her to where Raffi is, and basically they found Picard's body, and they explain that that's what was stolen from Daystrom. And parts of his brain have been removed, the bits that had the aromatic syndrome in it. Obviously, they don't know why. And they're just like, okay, well, that's weird. And then they cut back to the Titan. On the Titan, they're trying to figure out ways. So we've got Sydney, Jack, Crusher, Beverly Crusher, and Picard. Like, we've got to find a way to get control back of the ship. How are we going to do it? And Sydney's like, well, if I had a year to write some code, I could do something. If my dad, he could probably do it in a month, but to do something in minutes, we need a such and such and such and such, you know, something that can think really quickly to the data. So they make their way to where Geordi and Sydney are with data. And they come in, and there's initially like a standoff, and Geordi asks a question of Picard, like 6 years ago, you brought a bottle of Chateau Picard for my anniversary, and there's an interaction. They're like, yeah, we're all definitely who we say we are. They explained that they've got to plug Lore back in. He's the only one Data's the only one that can help them get control of the ship. Geordi's like, this, you know, this is like, there's a good chance if we do this, Lore's just going to take over. We could lose Data forever, and it's going to take time to do. And Sydney just says that, look, we are out of options. If if Lore takes over, we're going to die. If we don't do something, we're going to die. So Geordi kind of apprehensively agrees. So Geordi said, look, I'm going to need a bit of time, because what they agreed to do is take down the partition in his head, and they're hoping that obviously Data will get complete control, and then they can take down the ship. Jack says, look, I can buy you some time. You know, there's been lots of conversations around, you know, gift of the gab and sleight of hand and all this kind of thing. So they've got a plan. As long as Data can take control, they've got a plan. So Geordi takes down the partition, and then we kind of see sort of inside their head, in the mind kind of thing, and we see Data and Lore together, their personalities, and the partition comes down, and then Lore's just like, you know, this is going to be a piece of cake. I'm just going to, you know, rewrite you, job done. And then we sort of hear Geordi's voice, but it's a sort of a memory of when Data and him were on the holodeck doing Sherlock Holmes, and you see Data holding a deerstalker hat, and then he's holding the pipe, and And there's and Law's like, oh, what you really think these little trinkets, these little memories are going to save you somehow? And Data's like, no, but your memories are the best measure of the life you've lived, the person that you are. And then he sort of reaches and pulls Tasha Yar's memorial hologram, which he switches on, so we sort of see Tasha, which is great. He hands that over to Law, and he's just like, yeah, great, whatever. Sort of chucks it over his shoulder. And there's a series of like him talking through various memories. We see then he sort of sees a pack of cards, and he talks about the poker nights, and obviously that with his friends. And again, he just keeps handing these things to Law, and Laura's just like, that's interesting, toss. And then we get to the best memory. Use his meow, and it's Spot. It's like, oh my god, it's Spot. And Data talks about Spot and how Spot taught him to love in his own capacity, what he could do. And he talks about how he kind of had everything, because Law obviously resents Data because Data was part of the crew, and he sort of found a family, and even though he was never human, he was loved, and thought Law wasn't. And obviously he was deactivated because he was dangerous. He was everything that Data wasn't, and has always resented Data for that. And so Data kind of was like, he forgives him, kind of thing. And and Spot is everything that's best about Data, and the best version of himself. And he hands Spot over to Law, and Data kind of just sort of flickers out of existence. That's his last memory, his legacy, if you like. We then sort of see the matrix of their head just all turn red through like being Law. And again, Geordie's voice is just cracking, because he's like, I just watched Data die he thinks for the third time, and he's just like, oh my god, he's gone, he's completely gone. While all this is happening, Jack has got to the bridge. He comes in with this what looks like a thermal detonator from Star Wars. But he comes with this like round ball thing, and he's turned it on, and he's like, right, I'm here. And there's some dialogue between Jack and Vadim. Again, there's and she's like, do you know what the voices are yet? And do you understand what you are? And Jack's just like, sort of, just stop talking in riddles and tell me what do you know? I'm all ears. And she's like, ears, yeah, ears. And I'm like, that's got to be a clue to something. I don't know what it is, because it can't be Romulans. That's too obvious, right? But got to be a clue to something. So while Jack's sort of stalling, but he says like, right, you've got me now. You don't need the crew members. She agrees, and the crew members sort of go ahead to the sort of ready room. But then Seven runs back in. She won't leave Jack on his own. And again, she makes a comment about that's kind of fitting. So just go back to my Borg theory, like what's in John Luke's dead body is Borg nanites, or whatever's happened to Jack is Borg related. I didn't know. So then obviously we go back to Data and Law. As Law's holding Spot, he kind of like jolts, and Data reappears. And Law's like, well, what's happening? And he's like, I knew because these memories belong to me, I knew you'd take them and make them a part of you, because you would see it as a trophy, because basically you want everything that I've had, or if you could destroy what I've had. But by taking all these memories, and especially Spot, he's like the key to it. Spot's the key to everything, as it should be. Yeah. So Data was actually able to then rewrite and absorb Law rather than the other way around, because he's like, by taking all my memories, you've become me. and now we're one and the same. And then you just see the sort of head, the matrix all turn back to blue, and Data's there. And he's obviously a slightly different version of Data, because he's now got sort of Law's personality, bits of Law's personality, and he announces that, you know, this is one pissed off AI. He's now taking back the ship. He says to Jack, "Right, you're up." And Vadic's like, what's going on? What's going on? And Jack runs over to Seven. The thing he's been holding isn't actually a bomb, it's a shield, and he activates the shield. Says to Data, like, now. And Data opens the emergency escape hatch in the bridge, and Vadic and the Changeling obviously gets sucked out into space. And she, or straight away then obviously like freezes in the coldness of space. The kind of irony that she hates solids and she's literally frozen solid. That's her fate. And then obviously she starts sort of drifting through space, and she drifts until she hits the Shrike ship, and then just shatters into thousands of pieces. So I guess technically, if you could defrost it and put all those pieces back together, she's not dead. But in her current state, and it's all just floating apart, she could be alive in individual components in some sort of capacity. But I think it's safe to say she's dead. So Vadic's been killed. The emergency hatch obviously closed. Everybody comes back onto the bridge. Shaw gets in the captain's chair. Load up the weapons, says Seven, over you. And she gives the command to destroy the Shrike ship. And they, obviously, because there's no shields or anything up, because everyone's on board. Obviously, they had a message to say that Riker and Deanna and the others are off the ship. We see them come aboard, and there's a scene where Raffi just goes through and hacks down a load of changelings with swords. I'm not quite sure how that works, but anyway. But then Worf sort of comes along afterwards and then blasts them with phasers to make sure they can't reconstitute. So everybody's now aboard the Titan. And then we get the bit that we've really all been waiting for. There's a scene with like Geordi and Data talking, and just Data talking about how he's excited to be old. It's a new experience for him, and it's a new version of him, and how he's like happy to be alive. And then Picard does say to him, like, you wanted to experience death, you kind of begged me to die. I hope I haven't, gone back on that. And he's like, no, he goes, the old version of me is now resting in peace, but this new version very much wants to live. So, you haven't dishonored me in any way. So anyways, they're saying they're all in the ready room, just the original cast, all around the table in the ready room. There's all these interactions where they're all sort of saying how they've missed each other, and how it's great to all be back together, and they've left it too long. And Jean-Luc makes a comment like how they should. I need you all of you, which is very apparent in season 3, because we've actually got a good season, rather than Picard being on his own, being Captain Boring Apologist. So never a true word spoken then in that bit of dialogue. So everybody's been like, oh, miss you like it. And Worf comes out with a banger that says like he's over the years he's removed the heads of countless enemies, and he had thought about sending them each a head, but he'd been told that this is passive aggressive. So it's brilliant. Love Worf. Which they were a bit like. So anyway, they start obviously doing what they do in the ready room and start strategizing and what do we need to do. And Deanna talks about this presence she's felt when she's come on the ship, and it's not Jack, but it's around Jack and using Jack. This very, very dark presence. So she goes to Jack. Well, they agree that she goes to Jack and tries to help him. and obviously they're talking, and he's trying to explain what he's seeing and hearing. And she takes his hand, and then she's able to almost like go into his mind with him to see what he's seeing. And he's talking about the red door. He keeps seeing this red door. And she's like, well, you know, you need to go through the red door. And he's like, but I'm scared. I don't want to. She goes, I will go with you. But then in the corridor, they walk up to the door. Jack's hand reaches out to the handle, and end of blooming episode. Oh, I was just like, no, not through that flipping door. I have been watching OTNG. I've been watching season 6 and 7 of DS9, trying to figure out who is behind all of this, right? And I know when we get the big reveal, I'm so going to kick myself and go, oh my God, of course that's who it is. But I, for the life of me, I can't figure it out right now. I'm determined to try and crack it before next week's episode. But yeah, I cannot wait to know what is behind that door, who the big bad is, what's going to happen in an hour or so in Frontier Day, what has happened to Jack, how did it come from Picard, if it's not Iraq syndrome, what is it? The build of this show has been fantastic. So even with my criticisms of last week's show, like I said, it still took the story forward, absolutely rolled into this episode, and the way they just cranked the second half of the episode to go into episode 9, top, absolutely top. So great episode. I am chomping at the bit for episodes 9 and 10. Same time, I do not want this show to be over. Paramount have got to give us Star Trek Legacy. I mean, come on. I mean, nobody wants Starfleet flipping Academy, please. Give us what we want, Paramount. Do not be the stupidest studio out there. I've seen a few interviews and reviews, and the writers are all saying like the clues are all in there, especially episode 8. So I am definitely rewatching this episode. Like I said, I am determined to try and crack who is behind this. It's so great though to have a show that I am so looking forward to. I look forward to watching it a couple of times so I can do the reviews and talk to you guys about it. This show is just fun, Star Trek fun, and I'm loving it. If you don't like it, you don't want to watch it, fine. I'm like, you're lost. But hey, I don't like New Trek, and if you love New Trek, you're probably looking at me going, well, you're lost, you're not watching it. Each to their own. Really don't have a problem. But I love this episode. I think it absolutely did what it needed to do, cranked the story back up, moved us forward, and I think we're in for a hell of a ride over the next 2 episodes. I just wish I could figure out what's behind that blooming door. But there's some absolutely cracking dialogue in this episode, as I talked about. The interaction with Shaw and Seven, the conversations with Deanna and Riker, you know, really opening up, you know, what's been going on in their relationship, and you know, why he had to leave. And that's obviously Deanna say, try and take his grief away. The whole bit with Geordie and his voice cracking again when he thought he's lost his best friend the 3rd time, bless him. And just seeing a new version of Data, you know, you can say can't, didn't, rather than cannot, did not. Brilliant. Again, even the android gets some character development in this season. Even his characters evolved and moved forward, which is fantastic. So anyway, I've got to go. I'm due to leave the house in 4 minutes. Oh, bank holidays. So anyway, have a great bank holiday if you're celebrating Easter. Hopefully have a show on Sunday. It will be recorded because Easter, I've got plans. So try and be back with a live show soon, maybe one in the week next week. And I'll be back next Friday with episode 9, and I cannot wait. So have a great week, great bank holiday, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.